we're lucky in the sense of what we do for a living. You are in a field that allows us the opportunity to be sensitive and to be self-aware and to realize that stereotypical masculinity is not the be-all end-all. The lessons that were passed on to us, or the archetypes that we would have seen when we grew up, are not the archetypes that kids today will see growing up.
That's Chris Magee, and this is the Yoga Life Podcast. What's up, everybody? I don't know what accent that was. How's it going? I'm just trying to mix up my intros. I'm all saying hello, how are you? It's so predictable. But as you can probably tell, I'm in good humour. Few reasons. Sun is shining. I'm alive. Got exciting news. Got a few bits of exciting news. The first one, first and foremost, is I got Chris Magee on this week's episode, as you already know. Chris was here last year at the podcast studio / my home with his other half, Sarah. So this time I spoke with him separately. And if you're not familiar with Chris, I would say, in my opinion, he is the king of physical adjustments / assists. If you've been to one of his workshops or classes, you know what I'm talking about. Chris is the co-head of yoga at Cycle in London. He's cool because he's a big, strong fella, but ridiculously flexible at the same time. And his classes, which I've done on Fit, which is a fitness app, are really challenging. But he's very much movement-based because he actually comes from a martial arts background himself and a rugby background. So it's an interesting mix he has. He's Irish. He's from the north. And he's over here a lot more now, teaching workshops in Dublin. So me and Chris got a few things in common. We both used to train jiu-jitsu, and part of this chat goes quite deep into what it's like to be an aging man. Two chaps, myself and Chris, getting into our 30s and how that changed you as a man. So we did talk about yoga. Don't worry, you will get a yoga fix. But we like to go deep, man. We ain't scripting these things anymore. And like I did at the start, I was really cautious and careful. But now we're keeping it organic, Joe Rogan style. So, I hope you really enjoyed this chat with Chris. But before I get into that, I'm doing this in one take. Before I get into that, I got another bit of exciting news. I got my first ever sponsor. Oh, yeah. Yogaroo. What does that mean? These are yoga sequencing cards by Ruth Delahunty. Now, I met Ruth yesterday. We had some tea. I had some food while she watched me eat. And Ruth is based down in Black Rock. She's a yoga teacher. And she makes, I've got them here in front of me, the most beautiful sequencing cards I've ever seen. The craftsmanship, or should I say craftswomanship, of these cards it's beautiful, man. You just want to stroke the box. That sounds odd. But let me tell you a bit more. Firstly, though, let me differentiate. Okay. You've got home-led practice, which is when you do yoga online, which is great. But then you've got your own practice, which you should really be figuring out for yourself. But it can be quite difficult when you're standing at the top of your mat and you've got first thing in the morning and you're like, I don't really know what to do, what to put together. So Ruth has developed these cards, like I said, that are beautifully made, called 108 Asana Yoga Sequencing Cards. They make it so much more easy for you to sequence your own practice or even your own class. They've got loads of, apart from having beautiful designs, they've got loads of alignment cues, level guides, all the anatomy coding, all the Sanskrit English names, and they're really easy to follow. Good news for you as a Yoga Lifer, a Yoga Life listener, is you get yourself a bit of a discount. 10% off when you use the promo code Kevin after visiting yogaroo.ie. Yes, there you go. And if you have any more you want any more information about Ruth and Yogaroo, you can visit her Yogaroo_Island on Instagram. So man, that's my first ever podcast reader. I feel like a proper podcaster now. Joe Rogan, eat your heart out. But yeah, so that's it, guys. I hope you enjoy those cards. They're a brilliant birthday gift, or we just missed Valentine's. Damn it, anyway. But there's always a good time to be nice and give someone a beautiful box of lovely stuff. And the last bit of exciting news is that I'm sponsored by Apparel. See, I can't even say it. I'm so excited. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I wear gear all the time. In like all my photos, I'm wearing their clothing. I do wash my clothes, and they do the clothing washes very well, may I say. But I've known and known their founder Louis for a while now. In fact, Louis was on the podcast episode 26. If you want to have a listen to that, I flew over to London to meet him in Towers. And man, yeah, they're a sponsor of the podcast. So if you're not familiar with they make men's clothing for men that like to do yoga. And when you look at what they do, yoga's in a DNA from everything they do. I mean, they really believe in being kind to the environment. They use sustainable recycled fabrics. They use recycled paper for their packaging, and their big focus is on men's health. And as you know, I really care about this subject, and I think yoga can massively help to get more men into looking after themselves and look good while doing it. So all of Om's fabrics are eco-certified, and in fairness, our planet can't really afford much more irresponsible manufacturing now, can it? All you got to do, if you want to look good, look after the planet, do your bit, is go to om.com/The Yoga Life Podcast. Check out their full range of eco activewear for men. And if you use the promo code Kevin when you're buying your clobber, you get 15% off. I know, it's great, isn't it? Not valid for clearance items. Right, let's get straight into this. Chris Magee, here we go. Enjoy. Yeah, mic in your face.
As always.
Chris, hello sir, how are you?
Hello man, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How was your coffee?
It was delicious. You make an excellent brew, I must say.
Thank you, sir. How many coffees do you drink a day? Confess.
On a good day or on a bad day? Because I suppose it's like that's the loaded question. I try to not do more than 2. Today's 3. We had one before, taught the workshops this morning, one at lunch, and then one whilst I was downstairs just chilling in your lounge.
In the waiting room.
Yeah, in the waiting room. I try my best not to do more than 2. It used to be a lot worse.
Do you fast?
Not intentionally. I've tried a bit of that before. I was very strict on it maybe like 2 years ago, and I went through a period of kind of like trial and error with different diets, different stuff that was going on. You know, did a bit of vegan, tried that, saw what it, felt like, how did my body feel with this and whatever else. Did a bit of fasting. I found it was very hard to follow, depending on what your day was going on with. And we even spoke a little bit about it downstairs. Like, if you've got late classes, when do you eat? Do you eat a bit before? Do you try and wait and then eat after? And if you eat too late at night, then is that keeping you up and whatever else? So, Rhonda Patrick, you've listened to obviously Joe Rogan and a lot of the kind of the Dr. Rhonda Patrick stuff, and she talks about that interval eating window and the idea of like your clock starts the moment that you consume something that stimulates your digestion. So it's like, if you wake up and you just have water and whatever else, absolutely fine. As soon as you have anything, and like traditionally, like intermittent fasting doesn't count black tea or black coffee because it's got no calorie count.
Okay.
So they're like, oh, you can have a black coffee and that still doesn't break your fast. Where she's like, no, absolutely not. If it's anything apart from water, it's creating stimulation in your digestive tract, and that starts the window of, okay, so, and it's going to be slightly different for everyone. I started when I was doing it that way with her most recently. 12 and 12, work down to 10-hour window, 8-hour window. For me, I found like anywhere between 7 and 9 hours was the kind of the sweet spot. Anything like on the short side is a little. That's when you started find you've got hunger pangs and stuff like that going on. So,
And also, if you're, I was thinking about your schedule today, or when you came over on Friday, like say if you've got, well, last time you were here, you had an early morning flight. If you've got an early morning flight and you're getting up at 5 a.m. and then you're going to the airport, you're flying, you know you can't eat anything on the plane, really. I mean, you don't ideally want to eat plane food if it's an option. At the airport, the food options are terrible. So you have to think, if I'm going to the studio, getting off the plane, going straight to the studio, when am I going to get a chance to eat? And I think that's why, as you say, intermittent fasting doesn't always work.
But that's probably like an ideal scenario why the system of this kind of like intervaled eating window works instead, because you could break it. You could begin your window at 5 a.m. And then you could close it, you know, after the 8 hours or the 10 hours or whatever it is. Or you could say, no, do you know what? Water, nothing on the plane, nothing when I get there, nothing whilst I'm teaching. But then you just have to be okay with, you know, with doing the longer fast. I think it's also more beneficial because day to day, if I'm in London and you got like a regular week, like, you know, Mondays day starts at 10, Tuesdays day starts at 8, Wednesdays day starts at 12, you know, Friday morning you're teaching at 7 a.m. and it's kind of like so you won't necessarily have the ideal time to break the fast every day, so it's hard to get into that routine. So.
And also another thing to consider. I mean, it may sound some people listen to this who aren't yoga teachers or don't do a physical job may think it sounds like a trivial matter, but I don't think it does. I'm 37 in a couple of weeks.
And you're aging well, man, eh?
Thank you, sir. I really think that if I have to look after myself, because if you are, well, it's two reasons. One, you want to be strong and be healthy so that you can teach and not get sick, which, you know, is really important. And the second thing is, I know it sounds quite superficial, but sometimes if I see a teacher and they look healthy, I want to follow what they're saying more. If I see someone who doesn't look after themselves, doesn't practice often, doesn't care about what they put into their body, I would be. It wouldn't be someone that I'd want to particularly listen to what they have to say in terms of being healthy.
Well, it's practice what you preach.
Exactly.
And that's I'm a big proponent of that myself. Where I think like it's one of my real concerns for new teachers is that, because obviously when you start teaching so much, your personal practice just goes out the window, you know. And we've all been there. Like I remember whenever I was teaching, first of all, and you all you want is to get your reps in. You want to build your experience level of teaching, so you take on all the cover, all of the things. Like, yes, I'll do that. I'll run over there. I'll do the 6 a.m. I'll do the 9 p.m. I'll do it all. And then you find out like, oh, I haven't actually practiced in like 3 weeks or 4 weeks or something like that. And you almost lull yourself into the sense where you forget what it's like to be a student.
Yes.
You almost forget how the practice feels in your body sometimes, and to just be able to take a step back, to go back to practice and go back to doing the thing that brought you to the role in the first place, can influence your teaching in such a way that it gives it a real level of authenticity. Because if you stand up and do triangle pose, you feel what it's like in your body, and you feel where you want your engagement to be, and you can bring a fresh kind of like approach to it. So it's not like a regurgitation of the same cue that I give you every time. Then you think like, last time I did this, it felt like this. Yes. So maybe I'm going to throw some of that at them and see if that provokes something different in the pose this time, because that's what came to me in that moment. So maybe it'll come to the students in that moment as well. And I think that like keeping that connection to doing what you say you do, because the aim is always like, we're like, yes, you have to practice yoga. Like it's, you know, obviously we're in that business, but like if it was anything, let's say it's not yoga, for example, let's say it's, you know, a running coach who's like, listen, you want to get the miles up for the marathon, I'm going to need you to do 5 runs a week. And you say, oh, are you running the marathon this year? And they go, no, no time for that, or whatever it is. And not to say that you have to be smashing yourself with a practice all the time, but I think that there is definitely something to be said about the credibility of if you're still doing it, if you're still putting the work in Even though it's a process, if you're still putting the work in yourself, there is an extra level of credibility to be taken from what you say in that case.
100%. I'm so glad you said that, because I have recently had a massive breakthrough with handstand and splits.
Yeah.
Massive. I mean, I never practiced the splits ever. I just didn't do it. I just thought it's something I just won't do it. I don't really see it that much in class, and whatever. I abandoned it. And handstand, I was intermittent with it. Sometimes and then I realised doing the splits in a handstand, as in learning what my legs were doing.
Yep.
Gave me so much more control. I'm not kidding you, Chris. My handstand in the last month has come on leaps and bounds because I've had a bit of a breakthrough. But also, I feel like my teaching has come on leaps and bounds. I feel it has anyway, because I'm my enthusiasm is on another level now, because I'll say, yesterday I was doing this, and I notice if I actually point my toes, the day before I was flexing my toes, but if I point them, and I can see people looking at me and they're getting excited because I'm excited,
Absolutely.
as opposed to, okay, we're just going for the motions. It's more like,
it changes the energy in the room.
Definitely.
Your engagement in what's happening for the student forces extra engagement from them.
Yeah.
Your extra attention to detail creates more presence. They can't help but be captivated by your energy, because we all feed off each other's energy all the time. So it's like when you're actually giving it, when you're actually yes, I'm here, and and it's that goosebump moment where you're like, oh, this is amazing, this thing that I'm sharing with you, and they feel it. Even if they're like, oh, well, I don't want to learn to do that, or whatever it is, there's something, it changes the vibe of a class if the student is receptive to that. Yeah.
And also it's changed my mentality, because sometimes we have this outlook that as we get older, we get worse at things, we forget things, we get less fit, less flexible, less strong. We think that age means you're gonna
Regress.
Thank you. But I have realised now that I had a narrative in my head, or an internal monologue, which is very much like, handstand's not really for me. I can maybe once in a blue moon come up to one, but but it's like everything in life that you tell yourself you can't do something. And I have tried to tell this to people, that we give ourselves these stories in our heads that I'm not this kind of person, because we just haven't persisted at something enough. And what's kind of reinforced my enthusiasm now is that in the last 3 weeks or so, or month, that I've been teaching handstand almost every day, I have seen people say, no, I can't do a handstand. And I say, have you ever tried? No. Well, let's give it a go together. We use the wall, and they do it, and they're buzzing. And my buzz has made them buzz, and they've made me buzz.
Exactly.
A lot of buzzing.
That's
but then you see that breakthrough in people.
100%. And I mean, that's part of the joy of sharing the practice with other people, is that you felt it, hopefully, from the student perspective, whenever these things became unlocked, whenever this happened. And then the elation that you felt, you shared with your teacher. And now that you get a chance to facilitate this stuff to someone else, you then get to share their joy. It's like rediscovering it for the first time. Think about the first time you ever stuck a handstand, and what your reaction was like. And then you get to experience that moment with someone else who's sticking it for the first time, and it just takes you right back there. It's the beautiful part of it all.
Oh man, it's been a game changer for me. I want to switch gears a little bit, because this is something I made a few notes here that I wanted to ask you.
Oh.
And one of them was, I did your class online.
Oh,
yeah,
sweet.
man.
Yeah,
of course. I did a couple of them.
Yeah, you did it on Fit. Nice.
Yeah, man. So I wanted to ask you about what it is like to teach online compared to, say, we've just been talking about you share something, you get the buzz back, and if people are bouncing energy off each other. But what's it like when you're in front of a camera? And there's, explain to me, is there one person there, a crew there? Or
there's a full crew.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a full crew.
What's
So,
it like?
So first of all, if anyone hasn't, I'll explain.
Yes.
So I work with an app called Fit, FIIT. If anyone is listening to this and you want to go, they have a free version. there's a link in the bio on my Instagram. You can go in and check it out. They do a spectrum of classes. So they do like Pilates, yoga stuff, but they also do a lot of cardio classes, strength classes, stuff like that. It's an amazing platform. And yeah, they launched a free version recently. They're currently the #1 rated fitness app in the App Store.
Nice.
Which one of the founders texted me on Thursday to tell me, because they had just got their kind of like review in from January. Yeah, it's a weird setup the first couple of times you do it, for sure. You go in, there's 4 or 5 cameras, there's 2 or 3 camera operators, there's a sound guy, there's the Mitra, who's like the head of production, who kind of like oversees and looks after everything. There is the copywriters that are there to help for like keywords, like, so as soon as you finish your class, they'll be over and they'll say like, okay, like what level was that class for? What was it targeting specifically? Is there any kind of like key phrases or keywords which you think would help people to identify that this is the class that they want to take today? So there's all that kind of stuff that goes on off the back of it. When you film, it's you and it's dead silence.
Yeah. What is that like?
So yeah, it's a little off-putting. So sometimes they'll give you in some of the classes you see, I have an earpiece.
Yeah.
In which because like as well in terms of timings, like there is a clock that's running, but it's sometimes if I'm teaching a class, I have a playlist that is timed a certain way. So I'll know when I hear a certain song, I'm like, okay, like I'm like 15 minutes in, or when I hear the vibe of the music change from this to this, I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to bring people down a little bit. We've kind of like, we're coming towards the cooling section of our flow, or what, or whatever it happens to be. Now I want to bring them to seated, or I have a playlist planned out that way. So I don't wear a watch when I teach.
Yeah. I
don't check the time, or I very rarely check the time either on a clock or on my phone or whatever. I try to just let the path of the playlist guide me as to where I am within what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that same thing then happens. They said, like, if you want to make a playlist, we can give you the earpiece and you can use the playlist, but obviously no one else can hear the music. They're currently in negotiations for a deal with I don't know if I'm allowed to say who,
yeah,
but
enough, yeah.
but they're currently in negotiations with a deal for the rights to a large music library. And if that goes through, then basically they'll be able to add whatever my playlist is to the class pretty much identically. So you can hear exactly what I hear. At the minute, they're using royalty-free music over the top of whatever it is, but that's getting added in later. So I can't hear necessarily what the music that they're using at the time. So
you've got a big clock then up that have you got a clock up, say, over the camera that you can see how...
Two big TVs. So one sort of like, if you imagine, like, as I say, like, hey, what's up? Like, I look straight down. There's 2 cameras straight in front of me.
Yeah.
There's one big TV to my right. There's one big TV to my left. There's another camera over on, like, the far left-hand side, and then there's a camera directly overhead.
Yeah, okay.
So, and then in the edit, they can choose as and when they want to sort of cut between the 4 of those things. It's odd the first couple of times you do it. It feels a little alien because, exactly like you said, you don't receive any direct feedback.
Yeah.
The other thing that you notice is like, wow, I talk a lot.
Yeah.
Because when you practice, I hope when you practice, you breathe, right? And it's one of the things that I'm always feel that I'm reiterating to my students is that, like, connect the movement and the breath together, involve the pranayama more and more in your practice as a means to enhance the experience. The breath is the thing that takes you deeper into the pose rather than the next variation. It's not about physically moving it on, it's about changing the gear of it with your breathing. It's the catalyst for change. And I really do believe that. And if I'm practicing, of course I'm breathing. And if I'm teaching, I'm talking. And now all of a sudden I'm talking every single pose and doing every single pose and not breathing at all.
Yeah, that's difficult.
So
man.
So every class is me going, okay, and I just bring the foot forward, and then he'll bring your arms up to the sky, and then this and this and this, and focus on this and focus on this and this and this and whatever. And I was sweating buckets, and like we finished, and I was like, oh wow. And I film probably like 4 in a day normally. So and there's probably another trainer there with me as well. So we'll kind of alternate backwards and forwards. So I'll be on set for a full day, and I'll film for 60 or 90 minutes or whatever it is, and then we switch. And then I'll have a little rest, and then I'll go back in and do it again. But you think by the time you get to class number 3 or class number 4 of the day, it's pretty full on.
Yeah, that's because I might be doing a filmed class where someone's just going to film me teaching class. And have you taught to camera with people, students?
Yes.
What's that like? As in, like, is the if the camera's moving around, I suppose you've got to. Did you look into the camera, or was it like more like third person? You weren't talking straight to the camera, were you?
No, I sort of like introduced. I was like, "Hey, like, how's it going?" to the camera.
Yeah.
And then I just began the class, and then they were sort of like the voyeur.
Voyeur, that's it. Yeah. Okay.
Like observing what was going on. And then the cueing was for the student body. And even if it was someone watching on camera and who was participating in the class at the same time, my hope would be that they would assume the role of a student in the room. So if I'm just teaching the students in the room, that will be of equal benefit to the people that are watching from a distance. And then close the class, and then just close to the camera as well. Just kind of like thank the people here for joining, and
at the end,
and thank everybody for joining. That's
because I'm thinking about how to trying to find the camera to then look at it while teaching. Maybe that's not a good idea.
Probably not. No, I would think. From my experience, I just sort of like acknowledged it at the start, taught the class, acknowledged it at the end. It just sort of like bookended whatever else was going on. Because what is the purpose of the filming? What's it for?
Well, it's a great question. I think the most powerful content you can have is video of you teaching, or after that, photographs of you teaching, and it's really as a promotional piece to say, like, so I'm going to do it as like a charity event and say, you can come along, it's going to be for charity, but it's going to be filmed. So, and I'm working with a videographer who wants to do more of this type of work. And so we just thought, well, let's try this. I'm interested in kind of doing more of that type of media, because photographs are great, but they don't give you a sense of, is the person actually what are they like teaching? You know. But it's what was your content used for?
A lot of the time it was Facebook Live videos for people to join in remotely from whatever it was. So
that's a good idea.
I did a series of them with Men's Health, and then I did another couple of bits and pieces with the Boys of Yoga.
Yes. Yeah.
So we did a piece for Boys of Yoga through I think I can't remember. Oh, that one was through Huffington Post.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That's actually how I first heard about you, was through Boys of Yoga. But you haven't done much of them lately, have you? Or is Michael doing the Just Breathe thing?
Michael is doing everything.
Man, that geez is a beast.
The dude is got to be like has the craziest schedule of anyone I know.
Yeah.
But he's killing it. Just Breathe is really taking off, the mindfulness, the mass meditation side of things. So I'm getting a little bit more involved with that. I still do a lot of boys projects with him as and when they come up. So he reached out to me last week about 2 or 3 things that's happening this year, and he just says like, hey, like I've got some things. These are the dates. Are you around? And if I'm around, then I always love to get involved with him. Yeah. So last year I was in Budapest. I did a couple of London-based events for him. I can't remember if we traveled anywhere else and did any other workshops last year. But as and when they come up. But he's got such an extensive crew, so it's nice to rotate people at the same time.
Mate, he's got I've been speaking to him about, he's going to come on the podcast soon, hopefully. But he's got the best taste. That guy, like, he's got an eye for design. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. I love looking at his stuff. He's even his website, because it's so tastefully done. He has his own style, and I think that makes a big difference in terms of how if you can kind of communicate your message well, I think that is a real skill. You know, it shows that you're a good teacher. I've done some of these classes in Udaya as well. Again, switching gears, I wanted to ask you about FRC before I forget, because I want to study FRC. I've seen your thing on Instagram, Cramp City.
Oh, Cramp City, Cramp City, yeah.
So when did you do the FRC thing? When was the course?
Last week.
Oh, it was just last week?
Yeah, I did it last week.
So it was like, was it a 1 day thing or something?
Yeah, 2 days.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 days. We went up to Liverpool. They're doing it at a spot up just outside of Liverpool at the minute. It's like a 8 till 6 Saturday, Sunday type deal. Very good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It sort of took me back to my PT days a little bit. It's very science based. It's very anatomically focused. I found it incredibly interesting. They're a little bit like a smidge dogmatic.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
were they kind of against passive stretching, or what were they?
Oh, I mean, well, there was a small chunk of time of like shitting on yoga, but again, the perception of yoga is in the kind of like floppy, relaxed sort of yoga, and like Sarah and I were both there, and we both ended up saying, like, I think it was during the lunch break on the first day, it was like, I feel like he's not talking about the type of yoga that we teach.
Yeah.
I feel like he's talking about a type of yoga that he's maybe experienced once upon a time that isn't necessarily modern Western yoga, because pretty much everybody I know is very, very much activation focused, and the practice is becoming very mobility orientated as well. And I think everyone has if not necessarily their terminology or their means of expression of certain things. I feel like there's a lot of people who are doing this stuff, but just without quite realizing that they're doing it, or not to the level of detail or the level of extent that these guys are doing it. And they're just a little bit, it's just a little bit, same with any system. This is the way. Yeah. This is our way. This is the way, and this is what you're here to learn. And it's kind of like, cool.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I can understand why they would say that, but since I've been teaching handstands a lot, I've been doing a lot of hamstring opening, and I've realized that very rarely do I do hamstring flexion, just like isolated hamstring flexion, the same way I would do a bicep curl. And I've started to do some FRC for my hamstrings. And man, I just think there's so much room for that in a yoga class to keep balanced. I've even started teaching hip compression, those hip drills. And it's actually quite entertaining to see people's reactions, because you're like, lift your heel. And then people start laughing because they think, why can't my heel lift?
Or it's like, it's impossible. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
And then you can now say, welcome to Cramp City.
I just threw your line, I must say. Yeah, yeah, man. I think there's... So just because I want to do the FRC thing, the 2 day thing you did, is that like a foundation for FRC, or is it kin stretch?
So they have like a different setup system. So kin stretch is a different training. So they have FRS, functional range systems, is their sort of umbrella. And then within that they have FR or FRR, which is functional range and functional range release, which is specifically for therapists, like physical therapists, rehabilitators, like things like that, designed more for the North American market. It's obviously slightly different the way that we label things in Europe. And then you have FRC, which is the functional range conditioning, that then is applicable to coaches, teachers, already qualified people in whatever respective field. So I would imagine that it was like 90% personal trainers, CrossFit coaches, people of that nature that were in attendance of the course, and then maybe like 10% yogis who sort of had an interest in that. And then outside of that, they have kin stretch, which is the next kind of, if you imagine, the next step along. So you have to have processed through FRC. Once you've completed that course, then you can like move on to attending the kin stretch course. FRC is very much about your individual movement or individual coaching on a one-to-one basis, and kin stretch is then your ability to take kinetic stretching. Think something like an active pigeon pose, driving into the front shin, back leg lifted, being able to fold and come back up without losing the hips to the floor. That would be like a kinetic stretch. So then they have a system that's designed around incorporation of all of their FRC stuff, pails, rails, cars. They love an acronym as well. Like they're all about the abbreviations. So they have a class that's designed around that, and then they teach you the methodology of teaching that class, and then they license you to be a kin stretch instructor. So you can use that as the label, and then you can lead those classes, which are kind of
Man, there's a lot to learn then. I mean, but I think the FRC is a great place to start. I mean, that's as soon as they come to Dublin, I'm definitely going to do it because I think I don't know if you agree with this, but long-term health, I think mobility, learning how to move your joints in and of themselves is so important.
Yeah,
I think not enough people realize that maybe.
And I think the word mobility, they actually funnily enough, they started the weekend with this. They on the PowerPoint presentation that they give you, they like define, they're like, people talk about mobility incorrectly all the time. Like, oh yeah, like I'm working on my mobility at the minute, and it's like, are you though? Because it kind of looks like you're just stretching for no purpose, or you're stretching passively with no intention of ever gaining control of that range. And their whole thing is about be active and in control. I can choose to articulate this joint without the use of my other joints, or I can choose to activate and be isometrically strong in every single part of my range. And because of that, again, they talked a lot about sports injuries, or like sports specific training. The dude that led it is a BJJ black belt. So he was like, apologies. He was like, if you don't have any interest in jiu-jitsu, but I'm going to refer back to jiu-jitsu all the time because that's my thing.
It's not Andrea Spina, is it?
Andrea Spina is the course creator. But yeah,
he's a black belt as well in jiu-jitsu, isn't he? I think
he is, yeah. But Dewey Nielsen is the guy that was leading the course that I was on. And he's another BJJ black belt, and he was kind of like, he's like, think about this movement. So if I'm doing, he's like, if I'm doing this in jiu-jitsu, and then I'm doing this and this and this, well, I need this and I need this and I need this, and this is the sport specific kind of element of what it is. So if I have an athlete that can't do X, I'm going to train them to do this, this, and this, and that's the process of how they're then going to. He's all about increase the capacity of your joint beyond the space required for whatever your sport is, and never get injured. So he's like, if your load exceeds your capacity, injury. If I bring your load back up to the level of your capacity, re-injury. He said, if I'm able to take your capacity greater than the extent of what your load will ever be, joint health forever. And that's their kind of like.
That must have been handy for you, because it happens like being a jiu-jitsu practitioner, to have those references that he was making.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to then be able to go like, oh yeah, of course, when you're Kimuraing someone, or like,
because it sticks in your head.
Yeah, it sticks in your head. It's easy to identify. But they're also, he was quite diverse, and he was able to say they do a lot of work with professional sports teams in America. They're dealing a lot with baseball players. They're dealing a lot with basketball players. And even though those are sports that aren't necessarily applicable to us in the UK, or people were there from sort of all over Europe, you still get what he's talking about. Even if you've never played baseball, you understand the mechanics of watching someone throw a ball. And he's like, yeah, you weren't designed to do that 10,000 times in a row. Like,
of course.
You weren't designed to only with your right arm sling it back over and over and over again and fire the ball as fast as you can to try and get someone to hit it with a bat or whatever. So of course these guys are all suffering from wild external rotation and a change of the fibers of their shoulder joint. So then getting them to do something like this or something like this, like talking about internal rotation of the arm, he's like, that's almost impossible for them. So he's like, we're trying to retrain that joint back to healthy function so that they don't end up messed up like a year down the line or whatever. So
it's almost like then FRC is a tool to make you better at what you do most, like your dedicated sport.
They quoted Andrea Ospina, and they said the aim of FRC is to make shit work nice. It's
poetry.
Yeah, I know, right? I find it particularly funny.
I really like him,
probably
actually.
My crude brain. Yeah,
no, I really like him. I've seen him in interviews, and I love the way he's so. He's just real blunt and just very, really insightful, but in a non-flowery way, and I really like that.
Yeah, there's a certain, again, I'm a fan of directness when it comes to delivery of a lot of that stuff. And that's the way that I like to learn. I respond well to that. So yeah, very similar to yourself. Like when I saw their stuff and I connected with their languaging, as well as I agree in principle with their philosophy of why they're doing what they're doing in terms of like bulletproofing your body almost. You're making everything as controlled as possible and increasing the capacity of everything as much as you possibly need in order to make sure that you never injure yourself. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Because I think that there can be definitely such a thing as mindless yoga. People who do the same thing every single day, the same movements. I'm not going to talk about any particular disciplines, but just the same movements without asking themselves why. And I know I wanted to actually ask you, because last time we were here we talked about this, but we didn't actually record it, about jiu-jitsu. Because you were practicing jiu-jitsu for a while. Are you still practicing?
I would love to tell you that I'm practicing on a regular basis. I haven't rolled in about 4 months. Sorry, Ross.
I mean, apart from being very busy, like, why'd you stop?
Because
I stopped.
Oh, did you?
After training for 2.5 years, I stopped.
Okay.
I don't do it at all now. Only recently, and so I'm just curious as to why.
So, I would say like my jiu-jitsu journey has not been in any way consistent, which has been somewhat to the detriment of my progress. However, Ross Nichols, my coach, would be the first person to tell you that I'm better than I should be for the amount of training that I do, because I have body control from another discipline. So just purely for the fact of being able to move myself really well.
Yeah.
Because, yoga is jiu-jitsu for one, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember who said that. There's like a quote.
Joe Rogan.
Was it
he
Joe?
said yoga is like a martial art against yourself.
A martial art against yourself. Yeah, there you go. So it's so there's a lot of crossover, obviously, and having good body awareness and good body control translates into then having body awareness and body control of how to manipulate someone else's body at the same time. I kept getting injured whenever I first started, just because, you're inexperienced, you don't know what's going on. You more than likely are in a beginner's class full of other people who are inexperienced and don't know what's going on. Yeah. Or you get a couple of people who just happen to be a bit aggro or a bit ego-filled or whatever it is, and they're going hard that one day, and then, you're on the receiving end of it. So they put something on too quick and you don't get a chance to tap, and you hyperextend your elbow, or whatever it happens to be. So I ended up with a couple of nasty injuries probably within the first year of me doing it, which meant I had to take some time off. When I went back, and then I just started to be a bit smarter about who I was training with and how hard I was pushing myself. And I was just kind of like, do I need it? Do I not need it? The last big thing that I did was I competed, which was just... it was an enlightening experience, let me say, because I kind of learned that I don't have the fire for that anymore. Is the easiest way to kind of put that. Like when I was younger and I would have played sport all the time, it would have taken me no time to amp myself up for competition. I'd have loved to, I played a lot of rugby when I was younger, so I'd have loved to have gone and like big hits, smashed people, like done whatever else. And this I just found like, I couldn't provoke that level of controlled aggression within myself that was needed in order to execute in a jiu-jitsu competition the way that I probably should have. So I was kind of like, okay, competition is probably not for me then. So if I go back to doing it, I'm just going to go back to doing it for fun and enjoyment. And then sort of end of last year, I moved studios. So I went and I became the head of a different studio in London called Cycle. They like we spoke about it before. They've just opened up a huge 52-person yoga space in Mortimer Street in Oxford Circus in London. So
that's amazing.
It's so it's been a big, exciting new challenge to go across and to lead up that team with my co-head of yoga, Gemma. So I've just kind of been heavily invested in doing a lot of that, and ultimately, we use our bodies for work.
Yeah.
And, first and foremost, before anything else, we kicked this off. You said about nutrition, and, we were talking about diets or fasting or whatever it is, and about how you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of what you put into yourself, 100%. You also have to be smart about what you do. And if I choose to go and roll 4 times a week, and then all of a sudden I've got an issue with my neck, or something silly happens, like someone breaks my finger or something like that, then it's like, oh, someone just broke my finger. Okay, if I was to go back and sit at a desk, no dramas, strap it to the one next to it, all good. How do you teach handstands if you've got a broken hand?
Exactly.
And
that's your livelihood.
Yeah.
I mean, big part of it, like, obviously you can instruct, like Adam Husler did when he broke his leg.
Broke his leg, yeah.
Yeah.
Louis' bike.
Yes.
Louis dropped his motorbike on him. Yeah.
Sorry about that. And you can do that, but that's a freak accident. These things happen. It wasn't. And I actually want to go back to something which you touched on, and for me, this is a really interesting subject, about the fire that you lost. When I competed in 3 jiu-jitsu competitions, and when I was competing with them, I trained. I was the first person in the gym. I was like there early. I was because I had in the back of my mind, oh, in 3 months this is happening. In 2 months it's happening. Oh, it's only a week away. I need to be going every single day. So I trained like crazy. And then when I did the competitions, I felt sick all day. I felt really sick, and I started training jiu-jitsu at like 34. That's pretty old, And I felt sick all day, and the whole day I was thinking, why am I doing this? Well, I actually don't know why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And then I got in there. There was no one old enough. I was the oldest geezer there, so like I was there I had no one in my age category, so I had to compete against 18, 19-year-olds. These guys were all fired up and like really up for it, and I was kind of not that up for it. I wanted to do well, but I didn't have the aggression in me, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I think what happens, I don't know, I'm interested to see what you think about this, but I think as men, as we get older, we get a bit more nurturing. We get a bit like, I live with my girlfriend now. I'm a lot more thoughtful and considerate and maybe a bit more sensitive. And when I'm training with someone, I don't want to hurt them. But before, when I was younger, I wouldn't, like when I was playing football, I'd go in for a hard tackle and think, great, if he limped away, a part of me would be like proud that I hurt someone.
Yeah.
Which I feel kind of ashamed to say that now. But I think, I can only speak for men because I'm a man, that men change from their 20s to their 30s. What do you think about that?
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
100% agree. I would have had the exact same mindset. Playing rugby, the aim was to win, but if I could hurt you in the process, if I'm there to win the ball, and I can also like give you a little shoulder dip and you come out clutching your ribs, or like you come out with an extra bang that is then going to inhibit you for the rest of the game and give me an upper hand. Yeah, great. Yeah. And I felt the exact same way. Like,
yeah,
to roll with someone in class and to sort of go through the motions, as it were. Even when you spar in a class environment, I mean, the guys at the Roger Gracie Academy where I train are monsters, 100%, but they're all incredibly controlled. And then when you think like, okay, no, we're going into this competition now, and you get to take the lead off, and you just get to go because, what's the old moniker? Tap, nap, or snap, right? That's that's what the aim is, right? You're like, if I've got you in a rear naked choke, my aim is to choke you unconscious. And if we're in class and you and I roll every week, well, I'm probably not going to choke you unconscious. I'm probably going to put it on. You're probably going to know that it's on. You're probably going to tap. If your ego gets in the way, then you're not. But again, that kind of like gets bred out of you as time goes on. But I feel like there's a gear shift that happens when you take it to competition.
Definitely.
And, like I was in a, what's the term of a
round robin?
No, it was like a knockout to a secondary pyramid competition. Repechage? Is that the word?
I never heard that word.
Maybe.
So
neither did I until I got there. I was in my first fight, got knocked out. I fought first of the whole day. Okay. Showed up, put the gi on, weighed, and they were like, okay, on the mat you go. And I was like, huh, what? And was one of the reasons why I was like, I just can't get myself up for this. So I was a bit slow, a bit sluggish.
Yeah.
I got knocked out in the first round, but then you kind of go into the third place competition. So all the winners progress up, and then that's the decision of like gold and silver, and then everyone that gets knocked out at every stage goes into a second competition to eventually have one ultimate winner for bronze.
Right. Yeah.
And that was how the competition was structured. So I got knocked out in the first round, and I was like, oh man, like I don't know if I'm up for this. Like, okay, whatever. And then they called me in for my first round of the knocked out competition for bronze, and like took the guys back, got him in a collar choke, but he was belly down, so I couldn't see him. So I only got
couldn't see his face.
I couldn't see his face.
Yeah.
And I got one hand in for the choke, and as I came across, I couldn't get my second hand in, so I didn't think it was on.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like maneuvering to finish as we're kind of like told to finish. And because he was face down, he wasn't reaching around to tap me. So he was like tapping like way out on the mat. And I couldn't see him because of the position of our bodies. Yeah. And then like the ref is kind of like pulling you off. And whenever I got off this guy, he was obviously like, you know, and I thought like, oh my God, like I felt terrible.
Yeah.
I felt so awful. And I think once upon a time, I'd have probably been like, yeah,
that's it.
And I just didn't have any of that in me anymore. And I think, yes, probably exactly what you said. Like we become a little bit more nurturing. Like you're moving towards the age where you could consider yourself to be like a father or a father figure to
100%
to a lot of people. And you know, we're lucky in the sense of what we do for a living. You know, you are in a field that allows us the opportunity to be sensitive and to be self-aware and to realize that stereotypical masculinity is not the be-all end-all. The lessons that were passed on to us, or the kind of the archetypes that we would have seen when we grew up, are not the archetypes that kids today will see growing up. And I feel like there's always a little bit of it. Boys are aggressive. Like full stop, you know, like there's something in it. Like you see a playground and boys are running around and hitting each other and like throwing rocks and like sticks and like whatever else. And like when we were having lunch before we came here, there was a table next to us, like a mum was sitting with her two sons, and the kids had the chopsticks out and they were like trying to poke each other in the eyes with them or whatever else. And like, you know, like I don't know if necessarily you would see little girls trying to do that to one another. I think there is something like inherently a little bit aggressive with boys. They love that sort of like rough and tumble,
roughhousing,
like that roughhousing,
and that's actually a big part of growing up. And it should be, I think.
I agree. And then I think once you kind of get into the stage of puberty, that sort of like alpha edge takes over, the combination of ego and whatever it is that leads you to being that maybe that little bit too aggressive or a little bit too proud of your physical prowess or your aggression, and then we almost kind of come out the other side of that. And once you start to become a little bit more self-aware and a little bit less ego-focused and a little bit more comfortable with yourself, because ultimately it's that, right?
It really is. Yeah. It's
when you're in your early 20s, you're not comfortable with yourself.
No, you're trying to prove a point.
Exactly.
You're trying to really, because I know what that's like to not be seen as weak. Yeah, definitely to be tough, and jiu-jitsu can give a young man that. But yeah, man, this is a topic that really interests me. I'm conscious of, oh, crikey.
Weird.
I have quick fire questions for you, Chris. Okay. Favorite city and why?
New York, because I love the bustle and the excitement of a big city that I don't actually live in.
Perfect. That's funny you said, actually. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm not supposed to respond. First ever job?
I was a cashier in a casino.
Person from history you wish you could take to lunch?
Stephen Hawking.
Ooh, good one. That's a good one. If you could travel back in time when you were 18, what advice would you give yourself?
I would probably advise him against a few things that he may consider to do down the line. I don't know. I would probably just say, go with your gut.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Things people get wrong about you.
I have a very serious face, so people assume that I'm quite an intense character, and actually I'm not. I'm a huge joker. So people get that wrong about me all the time.
That's a good one. Last question. If you weren't a yoga teacher, what would you be?
If I wasn't a yoga teacher, what would I be? I think I would probably still be involved in movement in some way. I would imagine I would be a coach of some way, shape, or form, some respect. Or the other thing I would love to do is I would like to be the voice of like cartoon animated characters in films like Disney, Pixar, because I trained as a professional actor way back when, and I love doing accents and voices and stuff like that. So so I would imagine that I would find it quite entertaining to do like
there you go.
The voice of the new Pixar dog or something like that.
That's definitely the most interesting answer I've had for that one.
Yeah,
you.
Cool, man.
Chris Magee, thank you very much.
Thank you,
mate. That was great. And there you go. We getting deep all the time. So, yes, one more time in case you forgot, 108 Asana Yoga Sequencing Cards by Ruth Delahunty at yogaroo.ie. For the people that listen to this podcast, if you want to simplify your sequencing and help to bridge that gap between your studio classes and your home practice, visit Ruth's website, yogaroo.ie, put in the promo code Kevin to get a special 10% discount. And for everyone that supported me through my website, which I've been overwhelmed by visiting kevinboyyoga.ie/support the Yoga Life podcast, thank you so much. It's amazing to think that people will just donate money because they feel value from what I do. And there's more of this to come. This is only the beginning. Let's keep going. Have a great week.